Hello everyone. It's been a while, hasn't it? Jesus Christ. When the hell's the last time I recorded like a legit video? It's been a while. So, yo, what's up guys? It's your boy the Insane Game Breaker here. Feels like it's been a while since I've done that kind of intro. But hey, how you guys doing? Hope everything's well. It's not like I'm dead and you've seen me on other things, but you know, figured I should I get back into the groove of making traditional content again? Because that is what I started. That is what my roots are, and that's how I feel. And I have the need and will to create content to entertain the masses. So I wanted to kind of talk about something that's come up recently. So the two games that are kind of the trigger for this video concept is essentially Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then its Yuffie edition that comes out really soon as I'm recording the video, and probably Ratchet and Clank Rift in Time, or partially Ratchet and Clank Reboot that came out, I want to say, what was that, 2016 on the PS4? It's the remake of the original game. And I wanted to talk about these remakes that are different, but like if you talk to certain old school fans, they'll tell you they're not really the definitive version. Actually, I would argue SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom kind of rehydrated falls into the same category. A game that is a remake of the original game, but I would argue it doesn't keep or have the same level of charm that the original game had. And the thing that these games have made me want to do in recent times is made me go back and play the originals, which is why my first introduction to 7 was playing the original 7 instead of playing the remake that has all the shiny new graphics and the more action-based combat and breast reduction, because fuck you, anime titties, we're not about that life. And I always find it an interesting concept that, and then you have games like Ratchet and Clank. Now I'm going to give a shout out to I believe it's the Gaming Brit Show. If you've watched that super long video he did comparing the original Ratchet and Clank to the reboot, it's very obvious just based off that video that like the original game has a lot more of an edge to it that later Ratchet and Clank games either lost or got rid of. And it was through that video that if I ever check out Ratchet and Clank, it's gonna be the original Ratchet and Clank. I'm not playing the reboot on PS4 because I can give a flying fuck about that. I always find it interesting because it essentially creates a situation in which you now have a remake for new players that in some ways doesn't properly represent the franchise. For example, Battle for Bikini Bottom is a great fucking game, but rehydrated copies it, but I feel like it misses the essence. Like people who love Battle for Bikini Bottom love Battle for Bikini Bottom. It's not like this argument of like, well, there's a couple of things that are wrong with it, which is true, but like if I love that game, a remake has got to be. We're gonna be pretty anal about a remake. And if you look at Rehydrated, which isn't a terrible remake by any means, there's just a certain essence from that game that is lost through some of the mechanical changes that happened from the translation from like its GameCube, PlayStation 2 original to its now PlayStation 4, Xbox, PC, Switch counterpart. Other than the shitty frame rate that's on the Switch version. But we don't talk about that. Or the fucking glitches that are all over the goddamn place. No matter what version you play. Yay! It just makes me really appreciate playing an original game on original hardware. Or just the original game in general. And it creates this kind of interesting space. So you have your original game that came out and, you know, appealed to the masses or grabbed the attention of certain people and they love that game to death. Then you have the remake. Then you have like traditional remakes, like games that literally take the source code from the original game and transplant it into a better looking product. And those games tend to be well received. And then you have what I like to call these is like dummy, not what's the word for them? Like fake remakes almost, like games that pretty much are supposed to be the original game, but not really, because you realistically should still play the original game over this game. Like even Final Fantasy VII, even if you like Final Fantasy VII Remake, that is not Final Fantasy VII. That is not the Final Fantasy VII people grew up with and touched them. Like, it obviously wears the face of Cloud and Tifa and Aerith and Barrett and characters that you haven't met yet because part 2 isn't out, like Yuffie or Vincent or Sid. Like, obviously, it wears the faces of those characters. But in these situations, and to be fair, 7 technically is a reimagining, but the way it portrays itself, the way it was marketed was it's a remake, but it's not. It's a reimagining of 7 and its events. And in some ways, and as people would argue, it's essentially a bogged down version of 7. And it's almost like, well, then just go play the original. But I think that's the term I'm going to call them. Fake remakes. Remakes that aren't really superior to the product. And the only reason why you should play them is only if it's just more convenient for you. I know we're in this era of people wanting to play more new games than old games. And to be fair, I am a dude who prefers to play new games over old games. But I do want to make the case for the old game, because when you get games like these fake remakes, the games that, like, even Spongebob, I would still tell you to play the original over remake. Like, the remake looks nicer, but there are things I can name like 6 or 7 different things I don't like about it. It made Sandy's improvements mechanically are great, but it also makes the game easier and makes it low key broken because of it. You got certain areas in the game that are glitched the fuck out now due to just the change in programming. The damn hit sound effects don't sound as crunchy when you break boxes and shit. Yes, is that petty? 110%. But god damn it, it's just something I noticed. Some of the mechanics I feel like are a little bit more jank. Some of the animations aren't as smooth because you can tell it was like transplanted, but it was remade, but it didn't have the same, I want to say intention. I want to say like the mentality wasn't the same when they made the game. So I feel like SpongeBob doesn't hit as well. Granted, there are some things that were improved, like Kelp Forest, which was a dark piece of shit area that's now a less dark piece of shit area. I don't know, that level design for that area just doesn't hold up. It never was good, but there's just a certain charm that you lose, and that's just how I feel about that. Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's just a situation of, well, here's a bunch of cool events culminating in some things. And realistically, like, I hate that, like, the reason why 7 Remake bothers me so much is because 7 Remake literally is a game that just proves the point of the best version of Cloud and Sephiroth is the original Final Fantasy VII. I don't think any other piece of Final Fantasy VII related media has made their characterization any better. They have been their absolute best in 7, and that's it. Everything else is a downgrade. Some of them are less offensive than others, but they're all fucking downgrades. And it's just like, you know, for some of the most iconic RPG characters in the fucking video game universe, you have a real hard time nailing down their personality traits. And speaking of personality traits, let's just talk about Ratchet and Clank for a second. Now, Rift Apart comes out, and I'm glad people are excited for the game. It looks all right. I'm not overly interested because Ratchet and Clank was never an IP that got into, like, I never was intrigued by Ratchet and Clank, but the main issue with Ratchet and Clank I noticed is that, like, the cooler version of Ratchet and Clank is in the first game, not the fucking remake. The remake essentially turns into what we haven't had in years, which is the movie tie-in game. You remember those? The games where the fucking movie would come out, and then a video game with pretty much following the same events as the movie would come out, and they would have all these weird cut corners, like you wouldn't get true in-game scenes. You would get clips and pictures from the movie. The SpongeBob movie did that as an example. That game only was as decent as it was, primarily because it used Battle for Bikini Bottom's gameplay and engine to kind of like save itself. But like, if you looked at that game narratively, it's low-key a piece of shit. It does the same thing. Actually, it's worse because the clips aren't even from the movie. I don't even think they had access to the movie footage. So it's like generic SpongeBob pictures mixed in with movie pictures or stuff from trailers, and you're just like, oh, what the fuck is this? This is a bunch of fucking dog shit. That's what that is. But Ratchet and Clank Reboot essentially is that. It's one of those games, which is, to me, has always been like some of the laziest games of the generation. The only reason why they kind of get away with it here is because the game looks good, even though it ran into the lower frame rate and all this other shit. Like, that's what the Ratchet and Clank Reboot is. It's a lesser version of the original game. It even suffers the problem of some other modern remakes. Oh, wait a minute. Look at this cool area and these cool things that were in the original games. What's that? They were cut out because they weren't in the reboot, or because they wasn't in the reboot movie or referenced in the reboot movie. Oh, fuck it. What's this? Ratchet used to have this cool, like, edgy design in the original game. Used to be like kind of this buddy cop thing where their development changed throughout the course of the game and it redefined them as character. Wait a minute, Ratchet isn't that character anymore. I guess we need to throw that out and just turn him into, like, modern hipster nerd Ratchet, and you're just like, why? And that's kind of why I have these listed in the fake remake category. SpongeBob is just a poor faithful remake, all things, but I call it fake remake because it's a remake that literally you rather play the original version. Like if people talk about the greatness that is Seven, and this is the way I always looked at it. If we want to talk about Seven's greatness, there are certain remakes that come out that you're just like never play the original game because the remake is so much better and such a better representation of what that game is, and it still holds up today. That's a remake that you push, right? These are games that you would never say that for. No, I don't think there'd be any reason to push Final Fantasy VII Remake over the original Final Fantasy other than someone being like, I don't really like RPGs. Then what the fuck are you playing Final Fantasy for? 7 is literally, the remake for 7 is literally like, I don't know what's going on, but everything looks pretty. And I guess I have a girlfriend, kind of, sort of, here's a flower. Oh, hi. No, we're not Strife Cloud, Buster Sword, Limit. But it's just an interesting thing to me. Like do you guys have games that would fit under the fake remake category? Games that came out and that are remakes of games that you would never recommend and you would always recommend you play the original version. I'm just curious. Leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. I'm trying to get back into the groove of making videos, so stay tuned for more with this. I'm throwing like fake water at the screen and nothing's coming off, which is good. Because if water came out of my hands right now, considering I've done nothing to submerge my hand in liquid, it'd be like, this is some magical bullshit. Leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for the support. Let's a gameplay to win, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.